I want to talk in this video a little bit about gratitude. I'm going to define gratitude first of all. So, gratitude is the quality of being thankful, readiness to show appreciation for and return kindness. It's a state of being thankful for what you have in life, rather than complaining about stuff, rather than feeling jealous of other people and envious of others, rather than thinking how bad your life is. It's an opportunity to actually um, make the most of life, make the most of people, make the most um, of what you have, and treasure it. And that's why gratitude is so important, because it's almost like you're recognizing your treasure rather than cursing your treasure. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about what I mean by that in the context of this video. So the first thing is that gratitude helps you to encourages a positive instead of a negative mindset. And this is especially important at the start of the day. When you wake up in the morning, you open the curtains, you pull up the blinds, and you look outside, and yeah, you guessed it, you're in Manchester or wherever you are in England, and it's raining. And the first thing you do is you just get stressed out. Oh, here we go, it's raining today, I'm going to have to take my brolly, I'm going to get soaked through, and it just puts you in a negative mindset. You might then complain about your children not getting up on time for school, and how the car won't start, and then when you're driving to work, how much traffic there is on the road, and how you're going to be late, and blah de blah blah de blah. And then you get to work and the coffee's not good enough, and you're annoyed at your colleagues for not doing what you asked them to do in terms of that project you had, and so on and so on. And you just can just get into this like negative mindset where everything becomes a problem. And in the end, the only person that really pays the price for that is you, because you just get really stressed out. It makes you feel very anxious. It makes you feel like life is just rubbish. And I'm here to tell you today that actually it's better to have a different attitude. It's better to have a more attitude of gratitude, let's just say. And it's good to start the day off with a positive mindset. It's almost like, one of the most important meals of the day is breakfast. But, what about if you were to see your attitude at the start of the day as the most important part of your day? That first thing in the morning when you open up the window, or the blinds or whatever it is, and you look outside, actually, are you looking at the weather, or are you being thankful that you've got another day to live in this world? Are you being thankful that you can hear the beautiful sound of the birds? Are you being thankful that you're living in a country that's not at war? That actually there's so many things to be thankful for. And the reality is, at the end of the day, that we are very blessed. We're very, very blessed to live in this country. We're very blessed um, to have the opportunities in front of us. And this reminds me of when I went to Vietnam. I went to Vietnam, and I spent some time with a woman over there, and her family, and I recognised just the poverty that they had in their lives. How my friend was working, 6 out of 7 days a week, over 12-hour shifts, no workers' rights. The pay was absolutely atrocious compared to what we get here. Like, she was just being worked like a slave with no rights. I said to her at one point, I said, "You've got children, can't you just tell your employer?" And they don't have that option there. And it made me very humble and realise how lucky we are here. So we would complain a lot of the time about our jobs and what we get paid and things like that. But actually, when we compare what we have to other parts of the world, there's no comparison to make sometimes. And actually, we spend a lot of the time complaining about our jobs and living in this country, but we're so blessed and enriched to even live here and to have workers' rights, to be able to have a situation where you've got a job, to be able to have a situation where you're not living in a third world country where if you lost your job, there'd be no fallback in terms of healthcare or terms of, universal credit or anything like that. And when you think about it, like, that's such a blessing, but we don't acknowledge that. You just see all these signs in the paper saying broken Britain this, broken Britain that, but actually you live in a very blessed part of the world where we've got access to safe water, where we've got access to food, where we've got, you know, um, where we're safe. We're not at war. We don't have bombs dropping over our heads, And it's just this attitude of being thankful for your current blessings. It's a really enriching one, but it's one that we don't default to. We just default to how bad things are. And I'm here to challenge you today and say that maybe it's not all that bad. Maybe Britain isn't actually all that broken. Maybe we're actually quite privileged. And I think it's important to reflect on that mindset. And also as well, like I think it's important sometimes to be thankful for, what the issues that we don't have in our lives. And this takes me back to quite recently when I had a little accident. I went to McDonald's and I was walking out of McDonald's and I didn't see the steps and I put all my body weight onto my right leg, and I felt that twinge in my back, and literally for the next 3 days I could do nothing. Getting into bed was painful, my back was gone, and I couldn't do anything from opening doors to, carrying a bag from the supermarket to my house to, opening up the cupboard drawers. I just couldn't move my back at all, and it made me realize actually, when I'm alive and when I'm well and when I'm healthy and I can do all these things, do I ever just think to myself, I'm grateful for just being able to open a door? That might sound a little bit of a crazy thing to say, but actually it is an incredible blessing when you think about it. And I think sometimes, when we get so wrapped up in our lives, we forget the health we have, for example. I mean, I know not everybody is healthy, but a lot of us are reasonably healthy. But we don't appreciate that. We're not thankful for the blessing it is just to have health, and things like this can just really change our perspectives and give us an attitude of gratitude in general. And there are also a lot of personal benefits as well to just having this attitude. End of the day, when we are full of gratitude, did you know it's actually incompatible with jealousy and envy towards other people? So it's impossible to be envious and jealous and at the same time have an attitude of gratitude. And when we get envious and jealous of others, when we say to ourselves, my next door neighbour's garden's bigger than mine, it's not fair. My friend's got a much nicer kitchen than I have, it's not fair. My car's not as nice as my friend's car, it's so crap, life's awful. This attitude can actually make us feel very stressed. You know that? And it actually can run your life. See, that attitude can actually run your life. That jealousy can actually manipulate everything you do. It almost becomes, it centers everything you do around your actions. And who wants to live like that? I don't know about you, but I don't. I don't want to live my life feeling like that all the time, because it just creates stress for you. It overworks your brain and it just makes you feel terrible, and it makes you actually hate what other people have. And it's just not a freeing place to be, you know. And that's why it's important to embrace it, and that can be a benefit, a health benefit. The other thing as well is it can just make us happier people. So when I went to Vietnam and I told you about my friend, I felt literally so humbled just to see how poor they were there, but the community spirit they had, just the way they loved each other. It was almost like something I've never seen here in the UK. It was just like a completely different kind of appreciation for each other that they had. And I thought that was extremely powerful. And they all seemed happy. They had far less. They were working far longer hours. The working conditions were dreadful. They had hardly any rights. My friend hardly had any rights at work. They had half the things we have here, but they were happier. And that made me realize that actually maybe there is something in just being thankful for what we have, little that we have, or whatever it is, and just being more grateful. It can make you a happier person. And finally, this is a challenge today. It's just a challenge to sort of try and appreciate your blessings. It's just a challenge as well to sort of recognize that actually, it can, having this attitude can make us appreciate life more, and it can also make us appreciate people more. And this is my final example that I'll leave you with. Sometimes, obviously, when we go to funerals, and we celebrate the life of a person. Yeah, great. It's great to remember someone. It's great to honour someone. I'm all for that, and it's a beautiful thing to do. But think about it for a second. When we go to that funeral and we're celebrating someone's life, how often do we have that attitude with people that are alive right now? When I think back to some very sad times in my own life, when I was a lot younger, my own mother passed away, and it was a very, it was obviously a really painful time, and the way she passed was very sudden, and it was very, very difficult for us all to deal with, of course. But I thought back and I thought, actually, life can be taken away so quickly. And actually, do we have that attitude towards people that we love right now? I can honestly say that I, never really appreciated her existence to the extent that I did until she passed away. And I think that's tragic. And I think sometimes, we don't need to just celebrate people on birthdays or at funerals, but we can celebrate people here and now, here in the now, And I remember at that funeral, there was a lot of people came up to me and said she was an amazing person, etc., etc., and she was, you know. But how often did she get told that when she was alive? How often did she feel that appreciation people had for her when she was here? And did I ever think did I ever have that attitude? And if I'm being honest, I know I was young and stuff, but not really. And I think this is a challenge for a lot of people. I mean, so a couple of close friends of mine very recently, have lost loved ones, and it just awakened me to this fact that, you know, we just take them for granted sometimes. So, have that attitude of gratitude, be thankful for people, be thankful for your lives, and just see how much more content you are in your own life. And that's the challenge today. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you.